My sister wants me to give the car I just bought to her boyfriend. My name is Tyler Grayson. And this story. It starts with one of the proudest moments of my life and turns into one of the most humiliating. Trust me, you'll regret skipping this story. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Ethan's Way. Now get in the mood to listen to this story because it might be the ultimate sweet revenge. It took me 4 years. 4 years of clocking in at a job that barely paid enough to cover bills. 4 years of fixing computers at a tech repair shop during the day, taking freelance CAD gigs at night and living off dollar menu lunches. And finally 4 years later I did it. I bought my first car. Not just any car, a 2011 Mustang GT. Silver black leather interior, a low rumble that made my chest vibrate when I turned the key. Was it flashy a little? But I wasn't one of those guys trying to show off. This was mine. Earned. Every bolt of it. I remember the exact moment I drove it off the lot. My palms were sweaty, heart racing. The kind of thrill you only get when you do something purely for yourself. For once, I didn't owe anyone. No cosigner, no help. Just me, my savings, and that beautiful machine. I parked it right outside our house and texted my sister Kayla. She replied with 3 emojis, then followed up, proud of you. We should all go for a drive. I smiled at the screen. Kayla and we weren't exactly close. Not like when we were kids. But there was still that thread, the kind of bond that never completely snaps even after years of tension. She was older by 2 years, always louder, bolder, more impulsive, the kind who made chaos look fun until someone else had to clean it up. Still, it felt good to get her approval. She showed up later that evening with her boyfriend Zane. Now let me explain something about Zane. He had walking red flag written all over him. Muscle-cut shirts, too many rings, the kind of guy who said things like, I could totally start my own business if I wanted while borrowing money from everyone. But Kayla was infatuated. She claimed he was just misunderstood. He stared at my car like it was prey. Yo, he said, nodding with that too casual smirk. That your new ride? Yeah, I said, tossing the keys in my hand. Just picked it up. He whistled. Damn, you must be making big money now, huh? I shrugged. Just been saving a while. Kayla ran her hand along the hood like it was hers. It's so you, Ty. You've always been the quiet one, but now you've got this beast. I love it. She said it like she was proud, like I was finally playing her game. But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she was setting a stage. I brushed it off, told them I had work in the morning and needed to head out. As they walked away, I noticed Zane trailing his fingers along the car one more time, like he was trying it on. The next weekend, we had dinner at my parents' place. It was supposed to be casual pasta night card games laughing about old times. But somewhere between salad and dessert, Zane leaned back in his chair and said, Man, it's been hell not having a car lately. I looked up from my plate. Didn't you used to have that Dodge? He sighed. Yeah, but it died. Transmission blew out, and we just don't have the cash right now. Then he turned to me. I was thinking, maybe you could help. Help? I asked, already uneasy. Kayla leaned in, smiling too wide. He means you could lend him your car, just until he gets back on his feet. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. I'm serious, Zane said suddenly. Deadpan. You work from home half the time, right? It's not like you need it every day. I blinked. Wait, you want my car? Kayla jumped in. Not give, just let him use it, like share it. Come on, Ty, you're not selfish like most guys. The room fell silent. My parents looked confused but didn't say anything. I sat there trying to process what I just heard. This wasn't a favor. This was an ambush. I just bought it, I said. It's my first. Kayla shrugged. Exactly. You don't even know what to do with it yet. Zane could actually use it. That's when I realized this wasn't about transportation. This was about ownership, control, entitlement. I didn't answer right away. I just said I needed to think, which was a mistake. Because in their minds think about it meant soft, maybe. The next day I got a text from Kayla, and another from Zane. Let me know when I can swing by for the keys. Not if, when. That's when the knot in my stomach began to form. I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. The next few days were a strange blur of passive-aggressive texts and awkward silences. I didn't respond to either of their messages after the dinner. I figured silence would send the message, that it was obvious how insane the request was. But apparently common sense wasn't something either of them subscribed to. Kayla showed up at my place on Wednesday evening with 2 iced coffees in hand, like it was just another sibling visit. Thought you'd be home? she said, already letting herself in. I took the coffee but stayed standing. What's going on, Kayla? She dropped onto the couch and smiled. You're so tense. Chill out. I just came to chat and maybe nudge you a little. Nudge me. She grinned. Zane's been talking to a few job leads. All he needs is wheels. Just for a couple months. Seriously, Ty, think of this as your way of investing in people. Investing, I echoed. She nodded. You're always saving, always holding back. Maybe this is your chance to show trust. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time I realized how manipulative her kindness had become. She wasn't asking, she was pressuring, wrapping guilt in charm. I sat across from her. Let me ask you something. If I said no, would you be okay with that? She tilted her head. Why would you say no? That's not what I asked. She paused. I'd just be disappointed. Zane would too, and Mom and Dad. They'd probably think you're being a little selfish. There it was, the emotional blackmail. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, Kayla, I bought that car with my own money. I'm not giving it to anyone, not even to share. She stared at me like I had slapped her. You're really serious about this? I am. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and for a moment the mask slipped. You've changed, Ty. You used to be family first. I said nothing. She left without finishing her coffee. The guilt campaign started the next day. Mom called casually asking how I was doing, then slipped in, Kayla mentioned you had some kind of disagreement. I explained my side gently. Mom didn't push, but she sighed. You know how Kayla gets when she feels unheard. Then Dad called that night. Ty, he said, I'm not saying give the guy your car, but maybe let him use it for a couple weeks. You work remotely a lot. And Kayla said, well, she's just worried you're pulling away from the family. That line gutted me because I wasn't pulling away. I was setting a boundary, and apparently in our family that translated to betrayal. Zane texted the next day. Hey man, let's chat. I know Kayla's intense, I'm chill, let's work something out. He showed up that evening, standing on my porch like we were two old buddies negotiating a car lease. Listen, he said, I get it, it's your car. But think about this, if you help me now, you're building good karma. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. I asked him how exactly he thought he'd scratch my back. He smirked. Connections, people I know, opportunities, I got hustle. I said no. Flat. Simple. Zane's face darkened just a shade. You sure about that? I didn't flinch, I'm sure. He left without another word. That night, Kayla blew up my phone. She accused me of being jealous, of not wanting to see her happy, of always having this weird need to prove you're better than me. It hit a nerve, because for most of our childhood, I did try to be the quiet one, the fixer, the one who cleaned up her messes, the one who lent money and never asked for it back, the one who told our parents she's just figuring things out. But this was something else. This wasn't Kayla being chaotic. This was Kayla being entitled, and I wasn't going to fund her mistakes anymore. I didn't sleep much that week. I parked my car in a different spot every night, worried Zane might try something stupid. My friends told me I was being paranoid, but I knew his type. The smirking confidence, the sense of ownership over things that didn't belong to him. And Kayla, she stopped texting, went silent, which in a way was worse than her rants, because I knew silence meant scheming. By the weekend, my parents invited me to brunch. I almost didn't go, but I wanted to keep the peace. Halfway through eggs and toast, Kayla arrived unannounced. She kissed Mom's cheek, hugged Dad, then turned to me. Still guarding the car like it's a national treasure, she asked with a tight smile. I ignored her, but Dad spoke up. Kayla, enough. She raised her eyebrows. I'm just saying, he used to care about people. Now he's acting like the car makes him better than us. That's when I finally lost patience. I care about people who don't treat me like a vending machine. Silence. Kayla looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't playing the role of the agreeable little brother. I was standing up. And that changed everything. The silence didn't last long. By Monday, the group chats were lit up with subtle jabs, family photos posted without me tagged, messages about some people forgetting their roots, the kind of passive-aggressive warfare Kayla specialized in. She knew how to hurt without ever being direct. But the moment that really flipped the script came on Tuesday. My coworker Marissa poked her head into my cubicle. Hey, she said someone's out front asking for you. I got up confused. I wasn't expecting anyone. And then I saw him. Zane. Leaning on the hood of my Mustang like it was his. Aviators on, phone in hand, cool as a cucumber in the middle of my office parking lot. I stepped outside. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He smirked. "Just came to talk. Thought you might be more reasonable in person." "You showed up to my work." "Relax," he said, "just 5 minutes." I motioned him away from the car. He followed slow, like he had all the time in the world. "You're really willing to burn this whole thing down over a car." "I'm not burning anything," I said. "I'm protecting what's mine." He laughed. "It's not that deep, man." But it was. It was deeper than Zane could ever understand. This car represented years of discipline, struggle, sacrifice. It was a symbol of self-respect, something no one had handed me. I had clawed for it. "You need to leave," I said. Zane didn't budge. "You sure you want to go to war over this?" I stepped closer, looking him straight in the eye, "If I have to." He sneered. "You're gonna regret that," then turned and walked away. That's when I noticed it, a long, shallow scratch on the driver's side door. A warning. I filed a police report that night. Did I have proof it was him? No, but I documented everything. The visit, the conversations, the text messages. I made sure there was a paper trail. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I was preparing for war. 2 days later, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was shaking. "Tyler, honey, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "Kayla says you threatened Zane, that he's scared to be around you." I laughed bitterly. "Did she also mention he keyed my car?" "She said you had some kind of meltdown." I took a deep breath. "Mom, he showed up at my job. He vandalized my car. I filed a report." Silence. "Then why didn't you tell us?" "Because you just tell me to be the bigger person, like always." She didn't argue. She just sighed. "I don't know what's happening to this family." I did. It was finally being forced to look in the mirror. That weekend, I didn't go to family dinner. I stayed home, watched TV, and detailed the Mustang inside and out. It felt like ritual, like reclaiming something. But then Sunday morning, another note, tucked under my windshield wiper. "You'll regret this. People like you always fold." I showed it to the police. They took another report, but this time they actually called Zane in for questioning. Kayla exploded. She texted me in all caps, called me a liar, accused me of trying to ruin her life, then sent one final message: "You're dead to me." And honestly, that hurt more than anything. My parents begged me to be the peacemaker, but I told them something I'd never said before. Maybe peace shouldn't always come at my expense. I started going no contact with Kayla, blocked her on everything, changed my locks, parked in new places. I even started journaling, something my therapist once suggested, because this wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about drawing a line, about breaking a pattern. Then one morning, as I stepped outside for work, I saw it, a dent on the passenger door. This time, there was a witness, a neighbor, said they saw a man who looked like Zane walking by the car late last night acting shady. That was all I needed. Police followed up, pulled some surveillance footage from nearby stores. They confirmed it. Zane was arrested for property damage and harassment. That was the last straw for Kayla. She showed up at my place, pounding on the door, tears in her eyes. "You got him arrested," she yelled. "No," I said calmly. "He got himself arrested." She looked around my apartment like it disgusted her. "You think this makes you the good guy?" "I don't think there's a good guy," I said. "I just think there are consequences now." She left in a storm of insults and slammed doors. And just like that, the last thread between us snapped. If you were in this situation, would you forgive or take revenge? Comment below to let us know. After Zane's arrest, everything should have been over. But it wasn't. Instead of peace, there was just a new kind of noise, this time from inside the family. My mom called me the next morning, her voice trembling like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "Tyler, what are we going to do now?" I asked, still half asleep. I already did what I had to. "He's Kayla's whole life right now," she said. "She's spiraling. She didn't even come home last night. Your father's worried." I sat up in bed. "Mom, he vandalized my car. Twice. He left threatening notes. He showed up at my workplace. If anyone else had done that, you'd be calling the police with me." "That's different," she whispered. "No, it's not," I said, sharper now. "It's only different because it's him. Because it's Kayla." She didn't reply. We both knew what she wanted from me. The same thing she always wanted to de-escalate. To be the calm one. To be the man in the family, whatever that meant. But I'd already played that role too long. This wasn't just about being calm. It was about being safe. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. For days, no calls, no texts. Even my dad, who usually sent one-word check-ins, okay, or food, was quiet. Then one afternoon, I bumped into my cousin Evan at the grocery store. We hadn't seen each other in a while, but he gave me this weird half smile. "Heard you turned into a cop," he said. I froze. "Excuse me?" "Kayla's been talking," he said, scanning a can of beans. "She's telling people you set Zane up, that you're jealous because she's finally with someone successful." I laughed out loud. "Zane doesn't even have a job. She says you exaggerated everything." "Did she mention the surveillance footage, the police report, the charges?" Evan raised his hands. "Hey man, I'm not saying I believe her. Just giving you a heads up. She's building a story." A story. I guess everyone's a narrator when they're trying to survive their own lies. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled up everything I had. Screenshots, texts, photos of the car damage, the report summaries. I even emailed copies to myself and saved them on a hard drive, just in case. Because this no longer felt like a family argument. It felt like a smear campaign. And I wasn't about to be the silent target. A few days later, my mom invited me to dinner. Just us. No Kayla. "I just want to talk," she said. "No drama." So I went. The house was quiet when I arrived. The kind of quiet that wraps around your ribs and squeezes. She made my favorite stuffed shells and lit the nice candles like it was a peace treaty. We talked about work, about my Mustang, about nothing for a while. Then she said Kayla's moving in with him. I stopped chewing. She said you made her feel like she had no choice, like she had to pick sides. She did have to pick sides, I said. She just didn't like the one where she couldn't manipulate me. My mom flinched. "She's your sister, Tyler. She doesn't act like it. She's hurting. So, am I?" I snapped more than I meant to. But no one's lighting candles for me. The table went quiet again, and for the first time I saw something shift in my mother's eyes. Not anger, not disappointment. Something closer to understanding, or maybe even guilt. "I didn't know it got this bad," she whispered. I pushed my plate back and stood up. "That's the thing, Mom. You didn't want to know." When I got home, I found another note on my door. This one wasn't from Zane. It was from Kayla. "You broke the family. Hope the car was worth it." I stared at the paper for a long time, not because it hurt, but because of how predictable it was. How every time I said no, she heard attack. How every time I asked for space, she saw it as abandonment. That's when I realized this was never going to stop on its own. She wasn't going to let me go. So, I had to be the one to walk away. Completely. The next day I blocked her number. I called my landlord and asked if I could move my lease up a month. And I found a new place, smaller, farther from the city, but with a garage, a quiet street, a reset. And as I drove my Mustang to the new address alone, no texts lighting up my phone, no guilt in my chest, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control, freedom. Not from Kayla, not from Zane, but from the version of myself that thought I had to carry everyone else's weight just to be loved. It had been almost 2 months since I last heard from Kayla. 2 months of silence. 2 months of sleeping without checking the street outside. 2 months of not explaining my every move to parents who only seemed to care when things were falling apart. And I had started to feel, okay. The new apartment was small but peaceful. My Mustang sat safely in the garage. I got used to the quiet. I even started working out again. Therapy once a week. I wasn't healed, whatever that meant, but I wasn't bleeding anymore either. Then one evening, just as the sun was sliding behind the rooftops, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Tyler, came the voice. It was Kayla. My chest tightened instantly. "How did you get this number?" I asked Mom. She said softly, "Can we talk?" "Why now?" She paused. "Because I think I made a mistake." I didn't say yes immediately. In fact, I told her I'd think about it. For 2 days, I wrestled with the idea of meeting her. My therapist asked, "What outcome are you hoping for?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe just some kind of closure." "Closure doesn't require her approval," she reminded me. Still, I agreed to meet. Public place, neutral ground. A diner we used to go to as kids. Kayla was already there when I arrived. She looked tired. Not messy, not broken, but worn down in a way that felt unfamiliar. Like her mask had finally cracked and she hadn't gotten around to replacing it. She gave me a weak smile. "Hey?" I nodded, sat across from her. Neither of us touched the menus. "I'm sorry," she said, just like that. And for a second, I didn't know what to do with it. "I really thought I was doing what was right," she continued. "Zane. He made me feel like he had a plan, like we were a team. Was he ever honest with you?" I asked. She looked down. "Not really. After he got arrested, he blamed you. Then he blamed me. Then he just left." I waited. He left 2 weeks ago, she said, took my savings, maxed my card, disappeared. It hit me in the gut, and I hated that part of me still ached for her. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She looked up. Because I wanted you to know you were right about everything, and I should have protected you the way you tried to protect me. I let that sit for a moment. It sounded honest, but then came the twist. I've been struggling, she said. Bills, rent, everything. I sighed. Kayla. I'm not asking for much, she said quickly. I know I have no right. I just thought maybe you could help. Maybe lend me something, just to get me through. There it was. The pattern. The same loop we'd danced 1,000 times. The apology just long enough to make me soft. Then, the ask. I stared at her. I'm glad you left him, I said, but I can't give you money. Her face twisted. Tyler, come on. You still haven't apologized for what you put me through, I said. Not really. You said sorry for trusting him, not for what you did to me. Silence. You didn't call me because you wanted to rebuild trust, I said. You called because you're desperate. She blinked quickly, holding back whatever emotion was rising. I'll always want you to be okay, I added, but I'm not your ATM, and I'm not your cleanup crew. Kayla sat back, jaw clenched. So that's it. I stood up. That's me setting a boundary. I walked out before she could say anything else, and for the first time in years I didn't feel guilty about it, because I wasn't being cold. I was being clear. There's a difference, and some people just don't know how to handle clarity when they're used to you folding. The fallout came faster than I expected. 2 days after I turned Kayla down at the diner, I got a text from my dad. You seriously told your sister no, again. No greeting, no context, just frustration, hot and immediate. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another message came, this time from Mom. She came home crying, said you were cold. Is this really how you want to be remembered in this family? I stared at the screen, the irony almost too much to handle. Remembered. Like I'd died. No, I hadn't died. I had just stopped bleeding for everyone else. By that weekend, the full guilt machine was up and running again. Aunt Claire texted. Cousin Jenny left me a voicemail. Even my childhood neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, sent me a Facebook message that read, I don't know the whole story, but family is family. Don't turn your back on her. She's your sister. It was astonishing how quickly people formed opinions on things they didn't understand. But that was Kayla's gift. She knew how to perform heartbreak. She knew how to use silence as a spotlight and tears as applause. Meanwhile, the only thing I had was the truth, and the truth didn't scream loud enough for the audience. On Sunday night, Mom called again. I almost didn't pick up, but I did. I just need to ask, she said quietly. Is there really no way you can help her? Just for now. I helped her for years, I said, but this is different. No, it's not, I replied. It's just louder. She was quiet on the other end. Then gently, I don't know when you became so hard. That one stung, because she wasn't wrong. I had become hard, but she didn't understand that I had to. I hung up feeling like a stranger in my own family. So I did what I always did when the world got too heavy. I took a drive. Late at night, windows down, the Mustang humming beneath me like a second heart. I found myself parked in front of the old house we grew up in. The porch light was on. The garden Kayla used to destroy as a kid, still overgrown and wild. And I remembered how many nights I stood in that driveway defending her to our parents. She didn't mean it. She's just figuring things out. She'll do better next time. I had built a monument of excuses for her, but that monument had crumbled, and I wasn't rebuilding it. The next day, I came home from work and found a note taped to my door. This time it wasn't scribbled with threats. It was typed, formal, almost polite. We regret to inform you that due to a family member's legal concerns and emotional distress, we are requesting a restraining order to prevent further contact between you and Kayla. It was unsigned, but I knew it came from her, or from someone helping her. It wasn't legally binding, just an intimidation move, but still my chest went cold, because it proved what I had feared all along. She would rather erase me than face me. I called my lawyer that evening, not because I planned to sue or retaliate, but because I needed to protect myself. She walked me through everything, documented the false claims, set up legal alerts in case something was formally filed. And she said, this isn't about the car anymore. It's about control. She's losing it, and this is her last grasp. By the end of the week, something unexpected happened. I got a call from Zane. His number had been blocked, but he must have used another line. Ty, he said, voice gravelly, I just want to say, she's worse without you. What do you want, Zane? I said, instantly alert. She's telling people I abused her, that I stole from her. Didn't you? He laughed once. Yeah, but I didn't lie about it. That's her job. There was silence for a moment. Then he said, she doesn't hate you because you hurt her. She hates you because you're free. And with that, he hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, the silence ringing louder than the dial tone. Free. The word echoed through me, because it was true. For the first time in years, I wasn't stuck in her story. I wasn't her rescuer, or her rival, or her fool. I was just me, standing outside of it all, and staying out. I didn't realize how much of my identity had been tied up in conflict until I stepped outside of it. Without the constant stream of accusations, manipulations, and late-night guilt-tripping messages, my life had gone eerily quiet. The kind of silence that at first feels like emptiness, but slowly begins to sound like peace. No more calls from my mom begging me to make amends. No more flying insults from Kayla disguised as emotional breakdowns. No more fake apologies with price tags attached. For the first time in a long while, I had room to build something for myself, not in response to their chaos, but because I finally had the space to breathe. And the first thing I built was distance, physical, emotional, even digital. I changed my number again, made my socials private, blocked every extended relative who thought my boundaries were an invitation to shame me. Then I signed up for something I'd been putting off for years, a weekend car restoration workshop. It might sound small, maybe even silly, but for me, it was symbolic. I'd spent years trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. Now I was shifting that energy towards something that wanted to be rebuilt. Saturday morning, I pulled my Mustang into the workshop lot. It felt like sacred ground, dozens of others like me, sleeves rolled up, chins greasy proud. People who understood what it meant to create something with your hands. Not to impress, not to prove, just to own something real. There was a guy named Marcus, mid-40s, who ran the workshop. Big hands, soft voice, the kind of person who didn't need to yell to be respected. You're new, he said, pointing to my car. She's a beauty. Thanks, I smiled. She's been through a lot. He nodded. So have most of us. We didn't talk about families or sisters or exes. We talked about engines, about alignment, about power beneath the surface waiting to be tapped. And I loved it, because here I wasn't the brother who wouldn't help. I wasn't the one who escalated things. I was just Tyler, a man who liked working on his car. Over the next few weeks, I found a rhythm again. Work during the week, workshop on the weekends, long drives late at night, therapy on Tuesdays. A few people started reaching out, new people, colleagues I hadn't connected with outside the office before, old college friends I hadn't seen since graduation. I started saying yes more, not because I was running from the past, but because I was finally curious about what life might feel like outside of it. Then came the text from Mom. Your uncle passed. The funeral is Saturday. Kayla will be there. Just like that. Not a question, a statement, an expectation. It was the first time she'd reached out in over a month. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but Uncle Dave had been kind to me. He was one of the few family members who never took sides when things got ugly. He used to sneak me candy when Kayla got all the attention, let me tinker with his old Pontiac in the garage when no one else noticed I was around. He deserved my goodbye, so I said yes, but I went in prepared. The funeral was quiet, somber, small, just family and a few of his old car buddies. I kept my head down, paid my respects, shook hands, nodded at the people I needed to acknowledge. Then I saw her, Kayla, standing near the floral arrangement, black dress, arms folded. She looked thinner, paler, but the attitude was still there, her expression, guarded lips set in that tight line I knew too well. She saw me and walked over. Of course she did. Tyler? She said, voice neutral. Kayla, you came. He was good to me. She nodded once, then looked down at the carpet. I wasn't sure you would. I didn't say anything. She bit her lip. I wanted to say thank you. That surprised me. For what? For not blowing everything up. I raised an eyebrow. I don't think I had to. You did that on your own. A small, bitter smile. Yeah, I guess I did. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she said I started therapy. I didn't respond right away. That's good, I said finally. I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's a start. I nodded. Then she added, I'm selling the condo, moving in with a friend, starting over. That's good too. Another pause. Then I'm not asking you for anything. Good, I said again. But if you ever want to talk. She left the sentence unfinished. And you know what? I appreciated that. Because for once she wasn't demanding. She wasn't manipulating. She was just showing up raw and a little broken, and I didn't hate her for it, but I didn't offer anything either. I gave her a polite nod and walked away. Later that night, Mom called. I heard you talk to her. I was exhausted emotionally and physically. Yeah, briefly. She said you were calm, kind. I was respectful. There was a pause. Then she said, "You've changed." "I've grown," I said. "There's a difference." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't, but I said thanks, because maybe, just maybe, things could change. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, the Mustang keys in my hand. I thought about how far I'd come, how hard it was to pull myself out of a family system that didn't want to let me go, how often I'd been told I was too much for having boundaries, too cold for saying no, too hard for choosing peace over people. But I wasn't too much. I was just finally enough for myself, and that was worth everything. About a month after the funeral, something shifted in me. Not dramatically, not some lightning strike epiphany, but more like the quiet turn of a key in a door I hadn't noticed was closed. I woke up one morning and realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Kayla, not at my parents, not even at myself. I didn't forget what happened, the betrayal, the manipulation, the emotional blackmail. It all still lived inside me like old bruises. But the sting was gone. The weight had lifted. What remained was clarity. I wasn't defined by the pain they caused. I was defined by the person I became, despite it. I decided to take a road trip. Nothing extravagant, just a few days upstate through the back roads into the kind of small towns where people still wave when you drive past. No destination, really. Just the road and the hum of the engine and a suitcase in the trunk. Before I left, I stopped by Marcus's workshop, told him I'd be out for a bit. He smiled. "You're not running, are you?" "No," I said. "I think I'm arriving." He handed me a small toolkit, just in case. Every road trip needs a good wrench and a better story. He wasn't wrong. Day one of the drive felt like breathing for the first time after being underwater too long. The rhythm of the road, the curve of the steering wheel, the music vibrating through the speakers, my Mustang, my space, my pace. I stopped at diners with bad coffee and better pie, talked to strangers with kind eyes, stayed at a roadside cabin where no one knew my name. And somewhere around mile 200 in a town so small it didn't have a proper gas station, I pulled over and parked beneath a giant oak tree. I sat on the hood of the car sipping lukewarm soda, watching the sun set in slow motion. And that's when it hit me. For the first time in my life, nobody needed anything from me. No guilt, no pressure, no roles to perform. Just me, just Tyler. That night, I pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched since college. Started writing again. Not anything big, just thoughts, memories, pieces of dialogue that had lived too long in my head without a home. A line came to me. Some people grow from scars, others grow in spite of them. I didn't know which one I was. Maybe both. On the third day of my trip, I got a voicemail. It was from Kayla. Her voice was shaky, but not fake. She said, "I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted to tell you, thank you, for not staying angry forever. And I'm sorry, really, for what I put you through." She paused, then added, "I hope you're doing something that makes you feel free. You deserve that, more than anyone I know." That was it. No manipulation, no trapdoor apology, just a threat of something real. I didn't call her back, not because I was angry, but because it didn't feel necessary. We both said what we needed to. I came home 3 days later to find a small envelope taped to my apartment door. No name on the front, just a folded piece of paper inside and a photograph. The photo was old, maybe 10 years back. It was me and Kayla as teenagers standing beside Uncle Dave's Pontiac. I had grease on my cheeks. She had that awkward grin she used to do when she didn't want to smile but couldn't help it. The note was just 2 sentences written in her handwriting. "We were good once. Maybe we will be again. 'Kay?" I sat on the couch and held that photo for a long time. And I thought maybe not. But either way, I wasn't waiting for it. I took the photo, taped it inside my garage above my toolbox, not as a sign of forgiveness, but as a reminder that I could move forward without forgetting. That's something nobody teaches you growing up. That healing doesn't mean returning. It means redefining, choosing your peace even when it means leaving people behind. A week later, I started volunteering at a local youth auto program. A group of teenagers, most of them from rough homes, getting their first real chance to learn mechanics, to get their hands dirty, to feel proud of something they built. One of the kids, Miguel, reminded me of myself. Quiet, observant, always hanging back. He didn't ask questions. but he watched everything. One day, I caught him staring at the Mustang. "You want to sit inside?" I asked. He nodded, eyes wide. He slid into the driver's seat like it was sacred. "This yours?" he asked. "Yup, saved up for years." He ran his hands across the wheel. "I want something like this one day." "You will," I said. "Just don't let anyone convince you have to give it away to be good." He looked up at me confused, but I could tell he heard me, and that was enough. Sometimes I still get texts from my parents. Polite, surface level, like they're testing the water but not quite ready to dive in. I respond sometimes. Other times I don't, and that's okay, because I'm not angry anymore. But I also don't owe them the version of me that kept bleeding just to keep everyone else comfortable. You can love people without letting them back in. You can forgive without forgetting. You can drive forward without dragging every broken part of your past along with you. That's what I'm doing now. Rebuilding. Not a car, not a family, myself. It started with an email. Not a call, not a text, just a sterile 4-paragraph message from my father's account with the subject line, "Family Update." That alone should have tipped me off. He never used email unless it was something formal or something he wanted to emotionally distance himself from. Inside it read, "Your mother and I are considering selling the family home. We're downsizing. Before we finalize anything, we're inviting you and Kayla to come over next Sunday. Talk, maybe share a meal. Just close the loop." There was no mention of what had happened between us. No reference to the emotional shrapnel still stuck under our skin. Just close the loop. Like we were canceling a gym membership, not trying to salvage years of broken trust. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted me back in the fold, but only if I came quietly with my head down and my history erased. I sat with it for a couple of days, reread the email every night like it was a riddle I couldn't solve. Part of me wanted to go just to see the place one last time. The stairs I used to run down every Christmas morning. The back door where Kayla and I would sneak out during summer. The dent in the kitchen table from that one night Dad lost his temper. But another part of me knew that if I walked in through that front door again, I'd risk being pulled back into the version of me I'd fought so hard to shed. Still, I replied, "I'll come, but only to say goodbye, not to pretend." The house looked smaller, not in a metaphorical poetic way, literally smaller. The paint had faded, the fence leaned like it was tired of standing. The tree we'd built our childhood fort in had been cut down. It felt like walking through a diorama of our past, a model of a home rather than the real thing. Mom met me at the door. She looked older than I remembered, not just physically, emotionally, like something had been chipped away that she didn't know how to replace. "Hi, sweetie," she said softly. I nodded. Dad came in from the kitchen. He gave me a stiff handshake followed by a too long pause that felt like it was supposed to be a hug but never became one. Then Kayla appeared. She didn't say anything, just gave me a faint, tired smile. We all sat in the living room, 4 people pretending to be less broken than we were. Over dinner, the conversation was full of meaningless small talk. My parents talked about retirement plans. Kayla said she might apply to nursing school. I mentioned the youth auto program, and Mom smiled like it was a cute hobby rather than a real contribution. Then, near the end of the meal, Dad cleared his throat. "So, your mother and I wanted to ask something." I braced myself. He continued, "We're trying to keep the family connected. Your uncle's death reminded us that time's short. We'd like to see more of you, rebuild what we lost." There it was, the olive branch, but it came with thorns. Mom added, "We think it would help if you and Kayla sat down, really talk things out, maybe even go to counseling together." Kayla stayed silent. She didn't look up. I took a deep breath. "I'm not interested in fixing something that keeps breaking the same way." Dad frowned. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being clear. You want peace, but only if it looks like the past never happened. I'm not willing to play that game anymore." Silence. Then Kayla finally spoke. "I don't blame you, Tyler." Her voice was small, almost hollow. "I did things I can't undo, said things I shouldn't have. You were right to leave, but I'm trying. And if this is the only chance I get to say that to your face, I'll take it." I looked at her, and for the first time I believed her. Not because she said it right, but because she didn't say it perfectly. She didn't dress it up in excuses. She didn't cry for sympathy. She just admitted it and let the silence carry the rest. After dinner, we walked around the house, room by room, like tourists in our own childhood. I stopped in the garage, the place where I learned to change a tire, where I'd hidden my first speeding ticket, where I'd once helped Kayla patch up a scratch in Mom's old Toyota and swore never to tell. That version of us felt like a dream now. But it wasn't a lie, just distant. And that was okay. Before I left, Dad handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo of me and Kayla again, but this time it was recent, from the funeral. We were standing on opposite sides of the casket, both looking down. We didn't know someone had taken it. He'd written on the back, "You're not as far apart as you think." I looked at him, and for once I didn't feel resentment, just acceptance, not of them, of me. When I got home, I didn't tape the photo up like the last one. I tucked it in the glove box of the Mustang, a reminder that the past doesn't have to ride in the front seat anymore. It can sit in the back, quiet, restrained along for the ride, but I choose the direction now. The next few weeks were strange, not bad, not tense, just uncertain, like standing at the edge of something familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. I kept thinking about that dinner, about Kayla's voice when she said she didn't blame me, about Dad's stiff silence, about the look in my mother's eyes, the one that said she wished things could be simpler without understanding why they never were. I didn't feel hate anymore, but I didn't feel home either. That absence used to tear at me. Now it just made space. Space to breathe, to think, to move forward. I kept showing up to the youth auto program. Miguel, the quiet kid, had started opening up. Not much, just little things. A joke here, a question there. He reminded me so much of myself at that age, it scared me. One afternoon, we were under the hood of a beat-up Civic when he asked, "You ever fix a car that everyone said was too far gone?" I looked at the rusted frame, the cracked hoses, the half-dead battery. "Yeah," I said, once. "Did it work?" "Not perfectly," I told him, "but it ran, and that's more than anyone expected." He nodded quietly, processing. Then, without looking at me, he said, "I think my mom's boyfriend hates me." I froze for a second, wiped my hands, and knelt down beside him. "Why do you think that?" "'Cause he says I look like my real dad, and he's always mad when I talk." That ache in my chest came back again. The one that said, "You know this pain." "I'm sorry, Miguel." He shrugged. "It's whatever. I just work on the cars so I don't have to be home." That hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to say something profound, but I didn't. I just said, "I'm glad you're here." And that was enough. Later that night, I sat in the garage staring at the Mustang, thinking about everything I'd carried. The guilt, the resentment, the responsibility for everyone else's happiness. It had taken me so long to realize none of it belonged to me, and yet I had worn it for years like armor. But armor turns into a cage when you never take it off. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to the lake, the one from childhood, the place Dad used to take us fishing, the place I stopped going after Kayla told me I was too weird for being quiet. I brought a chair, a coffee thermos, my old notebook, and I just sat, watched the ripples move, watched birds skim the surface like they didn't have a care in the world. And for once, I didn't try to untangle the memories. I let them pass. They weren't mine to relive anymore. They were just things that happened. Around noon, my phone buzzed. "Kayla, can we meet? Just the two of us. No pressure." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Okay, coffee." "Yeah, you pick." We met the next day at a small corner cafe. Neutral ground. She was already there when I walked in, sitting by the window with her hands wrapped around a mug like it was keeping her steady. I sat across from her. We didn't speak for a full minute. Then she said, "I don't know how to start." "Then don't," I said. "Just talk." She took a deep breath. "I used to think you were the lucky one, that Mom and Dad loved you more because you didn't mess up like I did. But now, I see you were just better at hiding how much it hurt." That caught me off guard. She continued, "I hated that you never yelled, that you never fought back, because it meant I had to look at my own noise and wonder why I made it." Her eyes welled. "And I used you. When I didn't want to be the broken one, I pushed it on you." She looked up. "I'm sorry." I didn't rush to accept it. I didn't try to make her feel better. I just nodded. "Thank you." Then I said I wasn't lucky, Kayla. I was scared. Of what? Of being who I really was. Of never being enough for this family unless I gave up pieces of myself. She blinked. And now, I'm done giving things up. We didn't hug, didn't cry. But when we left, she touched my arm and said, "Even if we're not close again, I'm glad I got to know this version of you." And for once, I believed it wasn't about her needing anything from me. Just recognition, respect, closure. Back home, I wrote a letter to myself. I know it sounds cheesy, but I needed to put it in words. "Tyler, you were never the problem. You were the one trying to survive a system that fed on silence. You found your voice. You found your peace. You didn't need permission. You just needed to stop apologizing for needing space. You don't owe anyone anything but honesty and boundaries, and you've given both. Now live, without shame, without guilt, just live. I folded the letter, put it in the glove box next to the photo. Then I started the engine. Not to run, not to escape, just to go. Because I could, because I wanted to, because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just means no longer flinching when the past knocks at the door. And that's freedom. The email came on a Thursday afternoon. Subject line, Youth Mechanics Program, Expansion Opportunity. I almost deleted it, thought it was spam. But something made me click. Turns out it was from a nonprofit director who'd visited our garage 2 weeks earlier. I vaguely remembered her nice blazer, thick-rimmed glasses, the kind of clipboard that made everyone straighten up. She'd written, "We're impressed with the work you've been doing, especially your impact on the kids. We're launching a second workshop on the east side and are looking for someone to lead the new location. Would you be interested in discussing the opportunity?" I read it 3 times, then sat back in my chair, notebook still open from earlier. Lead a program. Me. I wasn't the guy who gave speeches or wore clipboards or nodded through board meetings. I was the guy who handed kids wrenches and taught them how to listen to an engine like it was speaking a secret language. But I also remembered Miguel, and how his eyes lit up when I told him he could stay after hours to finish working on the carburetor. I thought about the way he leaned into the work, how his shoulders dropped like the garage was the only place he felt safe. Maybe leadership didn't mean being in charge. Maybe it just meant protecting the kind of space you once needed. That night I drove. No destination, just the hum of the Mustang and the weight of the decision. I passed the old elementary school, the corner store where Kayla and I used to buy sour candy, the old mechanic's garage that shut down years ago, where I once stood as a kid and watched a man explain an oil change to his daughter like it was sacred. I thought about Uncle Dave, how he used to say, "Ty, if you find something you do for free, figure out how to do it for a living." I pulled over, typed a reply. "I'm interested, let's talk." And just like that, a door I didn't know I wanted opened. The meeting was set for Monday. I spent the weekend preparing not just notes but my mind. I wasn't afraid of the job. I was afraid of what it might change, what it might require of me. Because leadership meant setting the tone. And I'd spent most of my life responding to others, not defining the pace myself. But then I looked around at the garage, the one I had slowly rebuilt from a shell into a haven. And I realized I'd been leading for a while now. I just didn't call it that. Monday morning, I put on my cleanest jeans and my least greased flannel and showed up early. The building was still under renovation. A giant concrete shell with potential. I met Marissa, the nonprofit director, in a dusty makeshift office. She smiled. "Glad you came." She handed me a folder, budget layout plans, timeline. "But honestly, we're more interested in you than logistics." That stopped me. Why? Because the kids talk about you. You're not just fixing cars, you're teaching them to trust someone, to believe they're not broken beyond repair. I swallowed hard. "Do I need credentials?" She smiled. "You already have the most important one. You care." That was it. Simple, heavy, real. By the end of the meeting, I was offered the position, not as a manager, not as a mouthpiece, but as the guy who builds the garage from the ground up, mentoring, leading, shaping the whole damn thing. I said yes, not for glory, not for validation, but because I could finally give what I'd spent my entire life chasing, a place to belong. That night I told Miguel. He blinked. "You're leaving." "Not leaving," I said, "expanding." He looked down. "Will I still see you?" I smiled. "You're coming with me." His eyes widened. "For real?" "You're ready." He didn't say anything, just nodded. And for the first time I saw a future in his face. Not the kind that happens to you, but the kind you build with your own hands. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. I started drawing floor plans on napkins, interviewing staff, naming tool benches after mentors I never had. Kayla visited once. She stood in the half-built space and said, "I never imagined you'd end up doing something like this." "Me neither," I said, "but maybe this was always the plan." She hesitated. "Can I donate something?" "Sure." She handed me a photo. It was from when we were kids, me in overalls holding a socket wrench too big for my hands. Her behind me making bunny ears over my head. "You were always trying to fix things," she said. "Now it looks like you are." I didn't say anything, just taped the photo near the entrance. Not for nostalgia, but as a bookmark, a reminder of the page I turned. Some people think redemption is loud, a public apology, a dramatic change, but sometimes it's quiet. It's found in teaching someone how to tighten a bolt, or showing up every day when no one expected you to. It's saying I came from pain, and still I built something good. And maybe the past doesn't disappear, but it doesn't have to define you either. You define yourself in what you choose to carry forward, and what you finally lay down. The new garage opened on a Saturday, not with confetti or cameras or ribbon-cutting ceremonies, just the hum of tools, the clang of steel, the soft chatter of kids trying not to act impressed. I stood there in my worn boots, wiping oil off my hands, watching a 14-year-old kid named Chris figure out how to align a belt without snapping it. He glanced at me nervously. I nodded once. He smiled and kept going. And I realized this was it. This was the finish line I never knew I was running toward. That day, Kayla dropped by again, not as a sister needing something, just visiting. She handed me a gift-wrapped box. I raised an eyebrow. What's this? Just open it. Inside was a small carved wooden plaque. Burned into it were the words, "Fix what you can, teach the rest." I ran my fingers across the grooves. It wasn't just a gift. It was a mirror. For the version of me she finally saw clearly. Later, when the kids had gone and the sun was dipping low, I sat on the front step of the garage. The smell of grease still clung to my sleeves. My hands were calloused in all the familiar ways, but something inside felt light, not empty, cleared. I took out the photo Kayla had given me, the one from childhood. I had kept it near my workstation, just behind the pegboard. It was worn at the edges now. I flipped it over and wrote on the back, "I found my place." It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't in their approval or their silence. It was in choosing to keep going, to build something no one could take away. A week later, I got an invitation to a family brunch. Mom's handwriting. Kayla had clearly pushed for it. I didn't hesitate this time. I showed up, brought a tray of breakfast burritos, and sat at the table like a man who no longer needed to be welcomed because he already belonged to himself. Conversation flowed easier now. Even Dad cracked a few jokes. When someone asked what I'd been up to, I didn't shrink or simplify. I told the truth, and this time, no one rolled their eyes. No one asked me when I'd get a real job. They just listened. After brunch, Mom walked me to the door. She touched my arm lightly. "I know we didn't always see you clearly." I nodded. "I know. I'm glad you didn't wait for us to catch up." I smiled. "Me too." Because I didn't. I moved forward even when they stood still. And that's what saved me. The Mustang still sits in my driveway, still runs like a dream. But now it's not a symbol of what I escaped from. It's a symbol of what I chose to drive toward. Freedom, self-worth, a future built from scratch, one bolt at a time. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Some don't need to. This one ends with peace, not perfection, just peace. And that's enough. Final fade out, emotional closure in CTA. If you're still here, thank you for listening, for letting me tell the story I used to be ashamed of. Maybe you felt that pressure too, to keep the peace, to give up pieces of yourself for family, to let others dictate who you're supposed to be. But I'm here to say you're allowed to change direction. You're allowed to choose differently, and you're allowed to walk away without guilt. Just build something real in the place of what was broken, even if it takes time, even if you do it alone. And if you've ever been there stuck between who you were and who you're trying to be, drop a comment and tell your story. We're listening. This is Ethan's Way. Subscribe for more stories like this one, and thanks for being part of the ride.